Hello and welcome to the first Association Talking Head panel, the secret to successfully managing an association during the COVID-19 crisis. My name is Claire Wormsley and I'm co-founder of the Global Conference Network, which runs the Association Excellence Awards, and founder of the Media House, which delivers training and consultancy in all aspects of events to associations. I'm delighted that we have four such illustrious CEOs of associations here today, and we'll just go through a quick introduction before kicking off the panel. Ben Agnew is a relatively recent CEO to the Emerging Payment Association. He was previously in the B2B event companies, working for some of the biggest companies, Informa and Clarion, and brings his extensive experience of events, communities, and digital media. Dore is the CEO of the Association for Project Management, where she has overseen its transformation to become a chartered body and develop the reputation of project management as a profession of significant value. Walburga Hemetsberger is the CEO of Solar Power Europe, the European association representing the solar PV sector based in Brussels. Walburga has extensive experience working in European associations, including working with the European Parliament and Commission. She started her career as a competition lawyer, and it will be great to have her view from outside the UK on this panel. Finally, and certainly not least, Noorzaman Rashid, who is the Chief Executive of the Chartered Institute for Ergonomics and Human Factors, the professional body focused on improving life, well-being and performance through integrated design, technology and science. Certainly something really important to all of us today. But we're going to start our panel talking about something which is absolutely fundamental to the ongoing success of associations, and that's membership renewals. I've spoken to quite a few associations and there seems to be quite a variety. Some associations have struggled with renewals and others have actually increased renewals. And Noorzaman, it would be great for you to kick this off. What's it been like for you?
Thank you very much indeed, Claire. For ourselves, we renew in January, so I can give you up-to-date information on that. My membership director basically reported and said that she'd had a higher than average number of people actually renewing before she'd sent the reminder out this year. And I think that had something to do with the increased number of activities we had for members in the last quarter of last year, engaging them. The projection so far is that very few members have decided not to renew. There are members who are actually speaking to us about affordability due to work issues, and so we're taking some discretionary thinking on that. But the remainder of the year still remains to be seen.
That's excellent. I know you did some special promotion in December as well, and communications with the video which you produced, which looks like it had some good effect.
Yes, well, you know, January is always a nerve-wracking time for us because people have to do their CPD, they get rechartered, etc. And so one of the things we did launch just before Christmas was a video about our achievements and the application of our science within industry. And it really did boost people's morales around what the Institute was about and what our science was about. And it did play a part to increasing numbers of membership too.
That's great news. Walburga, what's been your experience?
Thank you, and thanks very much for the invitation. Maybe let me start by saying that we have been very lucky as a sector during the pandemic. So the solar sector has been growing. We've shown very resilient in the last couple of months. So we've been growing by 11% last year, still 12% lower than we expected, but nevertheless. And that also translates in membership figures in the end. So we have not experienced membership falling. On the contrary, what we see at this point in time, because the market is growing as well, but because also we have been engaging, I think, our members more and have had the opportunity to also show more with digital opportunities what we are doing. So that means that the membership has been increasing and is continuing to increase very, very fortunately.
That's great. So it's not just that you're in a market which is growing, it's also the consequence of how you behaved as an association. Debbie, you're slightly different because you've got your membership body. Tell us about how it's been for your members. You have a lot more individuals, don't you?
We do. So we have 34,000 individual members, and then we have about 500 corporate partners that we work with. So for the individual membership has held up really well and is actually slightly higher than this time last year. We have members that renew every month, so it's an ongoing cycle. But again, I think similar, by delivering more to people directly and digitally, they've probably seen more of us than they've ever seen before. So that's been very positive. We've seen a bit more of a challenge with some of the corporate partners where organisations just put a stop on discretionary spend, or organisations are going through big change because of the impact on the pandemic. So that's been a bit slower. We've had to be a bit more patient and supportive of getting those things through. But we're seeing that picking up again now compared to 6 months ago.
And what about you, Ben, coming into the association sector relatively recently? What's your experience?
Yeah, I mean, I'd echo a lot of the points that the panel have raised here. I mean, I think it's important to say that there's never been, a more critical time for community, for coming together to collaborate and partner. I think that's vital in the current climate, and I think as a result, trade associations have been incredibly in demand. I think it galvanizes an industry, it brings people together. I think the other big element really is showing the sort of societal impact and support that you can extend as a trade association, and through initiatives around reducing transmission of cash through cash, for example, and raising the limit of contactless payments, or looking at supporting the sort of excluded in society. I think they're very clear issues that people would want to be aligned with, want to be able to help, want to be able to show why their business matters and is ready to support. And I think all of that means inevitably there's a net growth of sort of members that want to become involved in those initiatives. We've got a very strong policy agenda within the EPA, which is pivotal to a lot of what we would do. But I think in the last quarter or so, we've seen year-on-year growth in terms of the demand for membership. We've never had as much engagement as we currently do in our events, and it feels as I said, a critical period to bring the industry together.
I mean, perhaps now people really appreciate the role which membership associations are giving their sectors, probably more than they have done before. Ben, you mentioned virtual events, and I'm interested because you've got the commercial experience and you've come over to associations, and I'm sure all of us have spent the last year accelerating our knowledge of virtual events.
Sure.
Events clearly are really important in terms of communicating with members, but also as a source of revenue. And I'm interested, sort of, Ben, particularly your views as to how, whether virtual events are really giving you the revenue which you got from physical events before, and what impact that's had on your association.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the point I suppose to make initially is the distinction between commercial activities versus that of a trade association. I mean, I think there's already such an incredibly engaged community in place for a trade association, and one that's strength is in its diversity, its scale, its commitment to an industry, and its sort of common cause. And I think as a result, it's probably a stronger platform for thought leadership and alignment around industry pain points, perhaps more so than a commercial sector running an event by comparison. But yeah, virtual events have been hugely important for us. We've managed to reach a larger, more international audience than we would have been able to achieve through in-person events. And I think even with a little bit more stability on the horizon and a pathway to returning to in-person events in the not too distant future, I think there's a number of elements of virtual delivery that we'd absolutely want to protect and retain, even with a return to in-person events. So developing that sort of hybrid model and the best of both worlds, again, just feels like a huge opportunity for us. And by that, I mean, the sort of content creation and remarketing opportunities of recording sessions and recording content, the sort of enhanced analytics and engagement with an audience through digital delivery, I'd want to retain, and combining all of that with the sort of valued in-person elements of events that everyone knows and loves, the in-person networking, the fact that you've got an exhibition packed full of the latest technology and innovations. So being able to keep that sort of online audience through streaming live or by sandwiching an in-person event between either side, maybe a virtual day, it just means that we continue to do the things that have worked so well, but still return to the elements that people know and love. So yeah, I think it's an exciting time for the industry. I think if you are content-led, you are a content-rich association, as we are, I think it's the perfect messaging platform, not just for our own thought leadership and a showcase of our own work, but certainly for our members, our partners that want to be aligned with that and to reach a bigger audience and project on a scale that perhaps wouldn't have been possible sort of 1-2 years ago.
What about your skills though? I mean, Debbie, what about the skills within your organisation? Have your team been able to get to grips with the technology and deliver events in a way which you've been comfortable with?
Well, we're definitely a lot better now than we were last March. So we've improved a lot. I would say at the beginning, there was quite a high tolerance of those attending as well. They were just really grateful that we were still putting the event on and it was still happening. Over that time, obviously our expertise has increased a bit and their tolerance has decreased a bit. So I agree with all the things Ben said and the good reasons. We're definitely in a much better place now than we were, and the platforms have improved as well during that time. So being able to try and offer some of the things that we were missing. For us on the sort of commercial events, so the business model is completely different because we've not been able to get the ticket price, but obviously also the costs have been a lot lower. So in actual fact, the end result hasn't been that different because our sponsors have stayed with us, but the process of delivering events has changed quite dramatically.
Walburga, I know when we spoke, you brought up the issue of networking at events, which you felt wasn't being replicated virtually compared to physical events. How have you found that, and have you done anything different?
Yes, indeed. I think networking remains the biggest challenge, even if I do think, and I agree with Ben and Debbie, that there's a lot of opportunities we've been able to grasp actually in going digital with much more participants. Like for example, our Solar Power Summit, usually we have 300 people. This time we had 200 and 500 registrations and 1,000 people showing up in the end. So and the team has done a great job. They are very motivated because they're learning new things, which is also great. And we've been really gearing up and accelerating our digitalization, which is a great thing. Also on a financial side, I can agree with Debbie that after all, the profit has remained approximately the same because we're very happy that our members continued sponsoring. Without ticket sales, we were able, with reduced costs, to also support financially our organization. So after all, we're quite happy. But indeed, networking remains a challenge. What we have done, so is we were trying to provide B2B opportunities in the different events we're organizing to members, and they have been very grateful for these opportunities with matchmaking where we were supporting. But the general networking, that remains an issue. And as we discussed already previously, there's been a lot of development when it comes to the platforms. But either the platforms are providing a great platform for conferences, or they're providing a great platform for networking. And we haven't seen a platform matching these two yet. But when it comes to networking, yeah, I think we have to go back to physical meetings, and the hybrid meetings Ben was mentioning. I think that's the next challenge we have to take. Because indeed, we should really try to use what we've learned on digital events and use the upsides of digital events further on. But yet it needs to. We need to go back to physical meetings as well, I think.
Have you had similar experience, Noorzaman?
I think on the budgetary side, we're all pretty much similar, that we've broken where we needed to be, despite running non-physical events. But we've done quite a bit of research with our members. Now, you know, around about 80% of our members want us to continue with virtual events. And the reasons they state there is it's easier. They have to take less time off their actual work. But what they're desperate for is in-person networking. And so our portfolio of work is kind of divided into a lot of free online events that are quite easy to organize. We might have 50 to 200 people on one of those events. Yesterday, we ran an event on neuroergonomics and fast jets. It was published last week, and we had 200 people attend it. It was a non-charged event. But we do have chargeable events, mostly related to CPD, related type of activities and master classes. And we find they attract a smaller audience, but it's enough income throughout the year. But when we move forward into 2022, we will focus on much higher quality in-person events, but fewer of them. In terms of the types of platforms, well, you know, it's only been a year and we're on our third platform, because we've literally outstripped the possibilities of one platform onto another. And in a few years' time, I imagine these platforms will be much more sophisticated, and we'll be moving much more rapidly in a way that we can't actually imagine today.
Yeah, I think the quality of virtual events is going to increase, and the move towards more of a sort of TV production quality delivery is something which we can expect in the future. But as you say, it's the platforms are running as quickly as the rest of us to develop and deliver. Noorzaman, I also wanted to talk to you about other ways which you communicate with your members outside of events. You have a really exciting and very impressive LinkedIn presence, which has increased during COVID. Tell us about that.
Well, that's true, I do. I may be unusual as a chief executive. I spend a couple of hours a day on LinkedIn. And the reason for that is that most of my members actually communicate with me through LinkedIn, despite my CEO email address being publicly available to them. There's a sort of a personal relationship you have, and I can't tell you how many people I've recruited because they've written to me and I said, are you a member? No. Well, here's a pack, you know, get on with it. I post 3 times a day during the most optimal hours. I post something very serious about my organization, where I want to get the message out, and then a couple of times a day on related stories and news items. And we found that as an effective way. So I didn't want to be the only person that was very good on LinkedIn. So we provided free training on Twitter, on LinkedIn, on other platforms for our members to encourage better and more effective use of those platforms. Allied to that, we've invested a good amount of our funds on much higher quality video production, animation production, and infographics. Because more people have time to look at these things, we needed a higher level of engagement. You know, I might say a year ago, I may have been disappointed at a few images of our events I might have seen online, but today there are absolutely camera-ready artwork that anybody would be proud of, and it makes a huge difference at the end of the day.
And Walburga, you've been doing podcasts, haven't you?
Yes, indeed. We've come up with our Shine On series of podcasts during the pandemic, and that has been greatly appreciated. It was a learning for us as well, but we have been valued by our members. So we had a couple of thousand downloads of our podcast, being able to present members, being able to present what we are doing. And I think it's a very nice format we would also want to continue with. On the social media presence, I couldn't agree more with Noorzaman. That's very, very important. I mean, we're still trying to get there where you are, Noorzaman. but for Solar Power Europe, what we can say is that we have increased our followers during the COVID time now for over all channels by 45%. And we had some across all channels, almost 4 million impressions. Which we are very proud of. We're still a medium-sized association, but one of the bigger ones here in Brussels. And we are continuously raising the followers and the engagement also of the community. And I think it's just very important. And the pandemic has accelerated our presence, I would say. So, and we try to continue, but I like this idea, Noorzaman, to also, providing insights to members, how to improve the presence on social media. So, very interesting idea.
Get them to be your advocates. Yeah. What about you, Ben, with your digital media sort of background? How is the presence with your association?
Yeah, I think it was really important to digitize the delivery of all of our core services as a trade association. I think in-person meetups has always been a big part of what we do and a big part of what people value about what we deliver as an organization. But we actually launched our own online community platform, which effectively allowed year-round networking, to be able to source, new partners, new contacts, to be able to post insights or thought leadership. And again, it just meant that rather than being anchored to sort of once a month meetups or some of the more structured event activities that we would be organizing as a trade association, actually the digital delivery has meant that's on offer sort of year round. I think from an events point of view, I've talked about some of the success that we had, but we also tried a range of different platforms to recapture the sort of serendipitous nature of who you might bump into at an industry meetup, and tried to harness the elements that people really valued about what we did. But I think that the biggest thing really is protecting fiercely the sort of outcomes and need that we serve, rather than necessarily trying to replicate the exact experience of a year or 2 years ago. And so in that sense, it's always been about networking, it's been about thought leadership and messaging, it's about bringing the industry together, rather than perhaps going down a virtual expo route, for example, which never particularly translates well in a digital environment. And that's been very well received. And I'd echo the points that the panel has made around again the sort of level of engagement going through the roof. It's a captive audience. People want to be able to continue the sort of partnering that they would have done pre-COVID. And as an association, we feel it's our role to be that facilitator, to play to the strengths of the community, really.
Why did you choose to do your own platform rather than use a public one or an existing one?
I think, we still have very strong social channels to amplify, a lot of our own content and that of our partners. But I think, again, it's about the social capital that's created within the community that we host, the community that we facilitate. And actually, it hugely supports our own policy agenda. We're effectively able to crowdsource opinion or views on an industry subject, and you know, we know that one voice, one coordinated voice is much louder and much more coherent than lots of individual ones. So, you know, again, we feel that the online community and our platform is a fantastic way to really harness all of those elements. So again, that was a big part of the reasoning, and again, it's added a huge amount of value. This isn't something that we've charged entry for. You know, it's a membership benefit that we've included within the existing membership fee structure. Now, we just felt it was the right opportunity for every stakeholder concerned. And again, not only does it elevate us onto the next level as a trade association, it makes membership inherently even more valuable than it was previously.
That's very impressive. But it's not just communication to members, is it? That's important. It's managing one's teams and one's staff during this time. And Debbie, I know I was so impressed reading about, you know, the value you place on listening and embracing change. And so I was interested to find out about your experience of managing a team working from home and how successful that's been and what the long-term implications are.
Yeah, so that's been a real learning experience for us. I mean, I think it's very easy when everything happened at the beginning to think about the things you need to do, but from your perspective. But obviously I'm in a sort of very advantageous position compared to a lot of people on my team in the fact that I have a room I can work in, I don't have young children at home. You know, there are lots of things that were actually much more difficult for other people. So I think we've never ever put sort of more effort into communicating with staff in a whole myriad of different ways, because different sort of routes work for different people. And we've learned so much from that process about how we can adapt and how we can work differently with people to suit their need. And so there's some real learnings out of that about, you know, I always thought I was quite flexible about how people worked, but nothing like we've been now, and particularly again at this moment, which is probably the toughest time for a lot of people. You know, they've got fatigue of lockdown, they've got their children back at home again at the moment, they're trying to homeschool. And I think we've all learned that that we really actually care more, you know, rather than just saying, how are you? We really mean, how are you? And there have been lots of things that we've been able to change in that way and really benefit from as well. So we've done a whole range of different things that everyone would do around sort of pulse surveys. Every month I run a CEO coffee club and I invite people who I won't have spoken to that month, because, you know, obviously in your own meetings, you don't get to speak to everybody. So I make sure I engage with people that I don't see very often, because then I hear a different perspective than I might hear from my management team or leadership team. We do, you know, weekly virtual walks where people are all walking in their own environment, but linked up together and sharing things. We've put up a private Instagram channel where people could just share pictures of things that were going on in their own life. So there's been a whole range of things that we've really done differently this year. And it's really interesting when we talk to people, they say they're the best informed, they feel the most valued that they've ever felt. So it's going to be a real challenge how we sustain that in the new normal. But I think our new normal is going to be very different as well for us. We have hardly anybody that wants to stay at home 5 days a week. And we have probably nobody that wants to return to the office 5 days a week. And so it is going to be about how we create that flexible future that allows people to really collaborate and get the benefit of being part of an organization, but with that flexibility that everyone's really valued of being at home as well.
Certainly sounds like it's going to be different. Noorzaman, have you put in any policies to engage your teams?
Well, you know, being ergonomists and human factors people, we talk a lot about health and safety at home, musculoskeletal disorders, and mental and physical issues. So it would have been really remiss of us not to put those in place. One of the first things we actually produced at during lockdown was a guide to creating a safe workplace, and an infographic that went absolutely viral around the world on how to stay healthy physically and mentally. And in a way, all of our members turned around and said, you've got that out to the rest of the world before you wrote to us about what we should be doing, you know. But I said, but you're ergonomists, you must know what to do already. The issue that we have identified that may be different is around inclusion. What we have identified is that there are people who are not being included in meetings. in decision making. And so the sort of guidance that we're giving leaders and managers of organizations is to think about how you are engaging all of your staff, because it could have a very significant impact on someone that isn't being engaged because they're going through something at home or personally, etc. So I have enjoyed the odd treasure hunt with my staff, but it's been good.
Good. And Walburga, you have people in different countries working for you, don't you?
Actually, by now, yes.
Yeah.
So before the COVID pandemic, we've all been working in Brussels. But there was a need also from, because I have a very young team of my team also seeing family. And it is, and they're all over Europe. And many of them have been working from wherever their families are in the last couple of months. And we are even, exploring at this point in time in how far members could also, after the pandemic, work from a different country. So I wouldn't exclude that we would also having more people not only working from Brussels in the future, because flexibility indeed will be something which will remain also from my perspective. So I don't see people coming back to the office all the time. I think also lobbying where we're working in will change. So I would expect that the way we are working together will remain different. We are very lucky because we have just moved to a new office in the middle of Brussels, and we have been designing that office during the pandemic, which helped us a great lot to design it in a different way and to design it in a way which reflects more the future flexibility we also want to see in working together. So we have a large community area where people would just come in and meet each other rather than, sit at their working desk and work in the office. So we were quite lucky to be able to just move at this point in time. And everyone is very much looking forward to meeting again in the new office.
Do you have any idea when you think you'll be actually in the office?
That's the $1 million question. I would guess a little later than you guys, because you're getting vaccinated a little earlier than we are here in Brussels. But I would hope that we would be back seeing each other at the latest in September. But that's my best guess at this point in time. So I hope it will be earlier even, but let's see.
And Ben, do you have any views as to when you'll be back in the office and what the kind of future will look like from a working perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've had a bit of a glimpse into that through sort of previous phases of responding to the pandemic, and even sort of across September, for example, we had a sort of one day in the office that we'd made, COVID safe, COVID compliant, and we're able to bring the entire team together on that day. We would have lunch together. We would stack meetings where we were in person. It was easier to do that and avoided some of the sort of Zoom fatigue. So I would see sort of a combination of remote working and office working as an environment. I'd hope it's earlier than September. I'd hope it's as early as the summer, really, that's perhaps considered comfortable and safe and the right balance to really find. But I'm a big one for managing by output, by outcome, not necessarily the hours or the location that it's conducted within, and that's been ever evident really in how people have been able to contribute and to work so effectively in a fully remote environment. And I'd agree with Debbie's points, really, that we've had to work so much harder at our communication than previously, and it's probably never been stronger in that respect. So a bit like the events piece is looking at what do you retain, what works well as taking the advantages of what you miss at the moment of an office environment.
It really is incredible in a year, the acceleration in all of our learnings, whether it be about virtual events or managing people working from home in a way which I don't think any of us could have foreseen. But it's really fantastic to hear so many great experiences of how you have managed your associations since the pandemic has started. It would be really good just to finish up on a positive note from each of you as to what you think has been a real positive achievement of your associations and this time. Noorzaman.
I think it's been a challenging year for all of us, but as the panel have described, we've all worked very hard to engage our sponsors, our members, our staff. And for me, the previous 12 months has really highlighted how people will pull together and respond to issues such as the pandemic, and they won't readily forget that they can work rapidly and they can work under crisis, and will look to actually keep some of these elements of remote working back to the office. So I think that's been good for our members.
Debbie?
Yeah, similar thing really. I think a lot of the change that has happened was change that we had planned, but probably would have taken us 5 years or 10 years or may never have actually happened. So I think it's really speeded up that. It's given everyone a real confidence about what we can do and what we can achieve. So really sort of harnessing that to go forward and keeping that level of engagement with all your different stakeholder groups, I think is you know, it has on the whole, despite its financial challenges and obviously personally for some people really challenging, I think there's so much to gain that will make what we do for our members and for our staff better in the future.
Brilliant. Ben?
Yeah, I think it's a big one around access for me, as I mentioned, you know, in my points earlier. I think, you know, digitization has meant, you know, involvement with a trade association isn't predicated on do you have a London-based presence. You know, actually, it's meant we're able to reach a far wider audience and project, you know, the work of the association and its members on a much bigger scale. And I'd absolutely want to retain that, you know, going into the sort of summer and autumn periods. You know, I think digitization has meant greater attribution and greater measurement and value of a lot of what we do. And I don't see that changing anytime soon, really. I think we would just pair it with, you know, some of the recognized elements of being a member that we'll fortunately be able to return to with being able to meet in person again.
Brilliant. And Walburga?
Yeah, I mean, it's very much the learning curve, the digital learning curve we are very happy with in the end. Accelerating change. Just as an example, I have been trying to develop Teams in my team. You know, the Teams platform we're all using now. For some time, it has never been accepted. But all of a sudden, with the pandemic, it has been used, and we've been really becoming very savvy when using Teams. So that has been a great success. But also the inclusiveness that most of you have mentioned, that you can reach out to a broader audience, have more impact, involve also more stakeholders, more policymakers in the end. That is something which is very positive. We've never had as many high-level meetings as we had during the pandemic with commissioners, with ministers. So that is something where we are very much happy with, and what we would like to keep.
Brilliant. Well, it's just fantastic to hear so much positivity. And thank you all so much for being part of this panel. It's been fascinating and really interesting, and I'm sure everybody's going to enjoy listening to it. So thank you for your time, and hope to see you very soon. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.